we look for the players that helps the team to win. That every coach, it doesn't matter the level, the higher you go, the more you look for the players who can make the team better at some way. Yeah. And in those ways, you have million ways to do it other than only scoring a goal. That's something that every coach, every team, every scout, everybody is looking for.
That was Petri Karjalainen, head coach of Kalpa of the Finnish Elite League. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolak. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolak, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolak, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello there, and welcome back to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolak. I am your host, Jason Podolak, and today we are going to do something that I've wanted to do for a while, and that is bring on somebody who is knowledgeable in a first-person experience in the Finnish world of hockey. And as social media can do, it can bring people together, and that's definitely what LinkedIn did for Petri and I. Petri was following the podcast, my podcast, the Up My Hockey Podcast, the one you're listening to here, and was also following the clips that we would post on LinkedIn about some of the nuggets and some of the gems that occur in a podcast episode. And he reached out to me and just kind of said, explained who he was, explained to me how valuable the podcast has been to him, how much he's enjoyed it, that he's referred it to some of his U20 national team members, and just kind of wanted to thank me, and so I was like, wow, I would love to have you on as a guest, and as things happened, it worked out. So Petri Karjalainen, I can't quite get that right, although he says my pronunciation, he gave me credit for my pronunciation for a North American guy, with his last name, Karjalainen, is a newly hired head coach of Kalpa in Liiga, which is the top league in Finland for professional hockey. So he has one of the dream jobs, 15 jobs available in that market. He has been all over the place. He's been an assistant in Liiga before. He's also coached over in the KHL. He has been a part of the national team program at not only the U16, but also the U17 and U18 levels. He has also been a part of the U20 level, where they won a gold medal the one year. So he is well versed in international hockey and well versed in Finnish ice hockey, and very, very grateful to have him on the program today. And I think you're going to enjoy it. One of the reasons why I'm so intrigued with the Finnish product is because if you dive a little bit deeper and if you look at their country, they really have no business performing at the national level as well as they do. They have a population of 5.5 million. That's compared to Canada at, what are we now, like 40 million, the States over 250 million. They only have 66,000 players registered to play hockey. So now that is a very high percentage of their population. I think it's second in the research that I did as far as from a population base, second to Canada. But only 66,000 registered players. Canada, on the other hand, has 513,000 registered ice hockey players. And the United States has 551,000 registered players. So what is that? That's like 5x. We have 5 times the more players. Well, even more so, actually. Geez, that's almost like 9x. And the States is close to 10x. And here they are competing, at the World Championship level. They won gold in 2019. They won silver in 2021. They won gold in 2022. At the U20 level, gold in 2019, bronze in 2021, silver in 2022. At the U18 level, they went on a crazy run with gold in 16, silver in 17, gold in 18, bronze in 2022. So these Finnish teams are not only competing, but they're winning. They're winning medals with a 5.5 million population for their country and 66,000 registered athletes. So how are they doing it? How are they competing? How are they producing such top talent? Is something that was really intriguing to me. So we definitely get into that towards the end of the podcast. We start getting into the Finnish development model, what they're doing. That might be a little different than Canada. Some things that we can learn from, some things that maybe we should adopt here and use and utilize, and some of the things might be surprising to you as well. And then we also talk just about hockey as in general. I mean, the aspects of coaching and how it is so interwoven into the player aspect, and how there is like a lot of comparables when it comes to coaching and making your way through the coaching ranks as it is to being a player and making your way through the ranks as a player, and about Petri's philosophies and what he feels are the big one of the big differences in today's players and how to reach them, and lots of good nuggets for players as well as usual on what coaches are looking for and how to impress a coach and how to really take your game to the next level. So lots of good stuff here today. Again, it's a model that we should be looking at. I think over here in North America, we should be embracing some of the things that they're doing over in Finland, because they seem to be doing it right. To be able to produce as many quality players as they are with such a small population is really compelling. And I think we should be curious. I always preach curiosity. I always preach enthusiasm. We can't just feel that we're doing it right just because we are Canadians or just because we are Americans and we have the handle on hockey. I mean, it actually looks to me like we're almost winning as many of the events as we do, just due to sheer numbers. If you have 500,000 registered players, you're bound to have a few float to the top, and perform well on the international level. To do it at the rate that Finland's doing with a much smaller percentage base actually playing the game, they're obviously doing some things right over there. So congrats to Finland, to the Finnish programming, and congrats to Petri for his new job there at Kalpa, and all the best to him, of course. And without further ado, I bring you my conversation with Petri Karjalainen. I'm super excited to have Petri on, because Petri you are the head coach of Kalpa in Finland. And I've been so interested in the Finnish development model and in Finland hockey, Finnish hockey in general. So I'm pumped to have you here, but I just want to officially welcome you to the podcast, Petri Karjalainen.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. It's a privilege and it's an honor to be here. It's always exciting to change some ideas and talk about hockey that it's interest for both of us and probably also the people who are listening.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's kind of the plan. I mean, I've especially with what I'm doing now, right, which is essentially developing hockey players, right, like to allow them to do whatever it is they want to do with the sport, whether that be a college or a junior team or an NHL team or a pro contract somewhere, and everyone has their own idea of what that looks like, right, that development model. But it's pretty exciting to watch a country like Finland with 5,000 to 6,000 people. I mean 5 to 6 million people. Sorry, you're not that small. But to do what it does in the world stage. So that's really where I want to sort of talk with you about eventually. I want to get there, but I want to talk with you first, just more about celebrating you, because what an awesome honor. You've just been named head coach of Kalpa, and this is your first shot in the head coaching position in the top league in Finland, correct?
Yeah, it's for me it has been a long road. Like, I have started coaching when I was 16, when I quit playing, and I have been on that road. And like I said, it's of course, you always, when you are younger, you have goals that I want to be at some point in somewhere. But in time of you start to learning that there's no time schedule. You can't put timing on something, and it eventually it happens when it happens. And probably it's good that it's going that way. And it's a long road, but still, it's of course first in a top league head coaching position for me, but always have to remind myself also that hockey is still the same, coaching is still the same, environment changes a little bit, publicity comes a little bit more, you have more supporting stuff, which is basically for me it's the biggest difference, that you have so many professionals next to you doing the work with you to make the team better and eventually win some hockey games, hopefully. But it's it has been a long run, and it's interesting. Like you learn from every year, every season, and it's that you have been able now to put your own stamp, your own foot, and start learning and making mistakes and making also something productive.
Right. Yeah, no, great point. I can't help but relate to the journey potentially as a coach, and I want to see if maybe if that relatability is accurate, because I remember there were times in my hockey career where, I mean, of course I loved hockey, which is why I was playing it, but also you get so fixated on a goal like the NHL or playing in a certain spot that you can kind of get a little bit depressed about where you're at, you know. And you talked about that timeline. I think I was fairly good at that, but there was definitely times where I was not happy where I was playing. You know, like I felt that I deserved more. I thought that I should be in a different place. Obviously, that doesn't probably translate well to playing better on the ice or to being a good teammate. But I mean, the truth is that we're human, and sometimes we get in these spots. Can you relate to that at all in the coaching environment, that you wanted to maybe be there quicker?
For sure. I have been very lucky. I have to admit that basically I don't have any playing background, which always helps if you have it, because if nothing else, the connections, and you easily know the people much better that way. But I have been lucky. For me, it was pretty quick that I wanna get I wanna be professional coach at some point. In that time in Finland, basically you have to be in the highest league to be able to be a professional coach. So for me, it was a long time that I wanna get to out of Finland. I wanna have experiences outside of Finland, and
so I just want to stop you for one second, just so I understand. So you're saying to be a coach in Finland, you would have had to played at the highest league. Is that what you're saying?
No, but it helps.
Definitely helps.
Yeah.
And that's where you're talking about the networking and knowing people and everything else.
The route is a little bit longer if you don't have a playing background. And I was lucky. I was a couple summers in close to you in Penticton in hockey school, and I made the connections over there with the Swiss agent at that time, and he was able to help me to get to Switzerland at some point. I was 3 years in Davos. Awesome time for me, and since then I have been in the professional hockey, being able to be in national team in Finland, in U20, and also with the U16 until the U18, and so you just have to push a lot of buttons, and you have to also face many times the no, that you don't get a job, or you don't get to the level that you think, like you mentioned, that but it when the time goes by, it gets a little bit easier, that you start to learn from the moments that you are in at the moment, and you maybe a little bit less start focusing on the future and try to focus on the moment.
Right.
But like you said, it's not always easy. It's not always, if you compare to something, or if you believe that I should be somewhere else. It's but nowadays it's a lucky in Finland also that we have much more professional jobs in hockey. That there are junior U20 coaches are full time. Many of the U18 coaches are full time. You have in organizations you have different kind of jobs. So it's getting better, and I think that's also the one reason why our hockey is pretty competitive, even with the numbers we do have.
Right. Yeah, for sure. The The one thing that I tell athletes now, and it's one thing that I really thought of even when I was playing to try and keep me like grounded and in the moment, was dominate where you're at. Like
Yeah,
that's my message. Like, don't tell me you're supposed to be somewhere else unless you're absolutely crushing where you're at, you know, and don't give me an excuse. Well, why? Oh, the players aren't good enough here, or this isn't good. I mean, you got to be able to dominate whatever level you're at, I think, if you want to move on. And in the coaching world, you know, time and time again, it's proven that you win at a lower level, whether it
yeah,
be the AHL over here or the East Coast Hockey League. These guys usually get a chance, right? They get a chance somewhere else and they move up. And I think for me, that was when I really got frustrated, is when I felt that I was dominating where I was at, you know, leading the AHL in goals at 21 or 22, and, you know, like having a type of year and not really getting recognized. It's
yeah.
like, well, what else are you supposed to do? You know, how do you help players with that now at your scenario? Because I'm sure there's players going through it, obviously, at every level, that they want to be somewhere else, or potentially getting more ice time, or, you know, playing in a different league.
I think it's starting to be one of the biggest things in coaching, because it it doesn't matter is the player 12 or 15 or 20, or is he a professional player. Many of them, they are hurrying. They have to be fast moving forward. They are compared themselves that this 17-year-old is already having a professional contract here in Europe, and why I don't have it. And uh, mainly it's talking. It's about finding the players that, first of all, that they do understand that every player has a different plan. Every player has a different route, and many times you need also a little bit wind in your face, that everything doesn't happen easily. Everything doesn't happen right away, and many times, of course, if you compare coaches and players, the difference is that playing career, it's, I don't know, in 35 you are starting to be not old but experienced player. Not many players can play until the age of 40 or something.
Yeah.
But in coaching, if you are 40, you are pretty young. Like I'm now for 43, and let's say that if I'm planning to do this work until I'm retired, so I have a lot of time. So you don't have to hurry. But in players' mind, there's no much other ways than to talk with the players and try to find the ways that he can understand what's his situation at the moment, what's the keys of finding those right paths, and trying to what's the daily work you have to put in and how you put in, and then maybe something happens in week or month or season or 2 seasons, and I can only imagine how much you guys have it more than we, because like I said, we don't have that kind of numbers what you have in North America. Is it in the States or in Canada?
Mm-hmm.
But uh, same things we are talking here, same things we are trying to affect here with a little less numbers.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, as a coach, is I find those are where the biggest gains are made.
Yeah,
Not necessarily. Well, it means some players you can unpack their stride, right, or give them some
yeah,
type of a skill technique that maybe unlocks them a little bit. But I find the biggest way to unlock players, or to make them elevate their game even more, as from a competitive advantage standpoint, is their head, right? Like getting their
yeah,
head in the right spot. And what you're talking about is getting somebody to commit to a process there for a year, or for a week, or for 2 years, to get to where they want to go. Can be a challenge, right? And there's lots of ways to do it. Well,
it
one of
is.
which I think is like really connecting them to the love of what it is, like why they put on the skates in the first place. Because, I mean, you didn't start playing at 8 years old because you were going to play in the NHL. You know what I mean? Like, so like
Yeah,
we can get in that, like, to your point, like we want everything right now. In fact, we want it yesterday sometimes, right? So like when we're worried about that, it can take our eyes off of what it is that we're like that we're actually doing, you know. And I think a good coach that can communicate that can help players align with that, keep their energy up, keep their enthusiasm high, you know, keep their attitude on the right track. obviously gives them a heck of a lot better chance to get to where they want to go.
It is, and it's so many times it's funny that it goes away that basic stuff why you started to play the hockey. And if you watch the professional hockey, that's also the thing that it's the job, you get the living from it, probably your family also gets the living from it. It's a well-paid job in every like the highest league. It doesn't matter is it Europe or North America, but still it's not that dangerous if it's still funny. It's in dark days in November when you come to the arena in the morning, that it's still funny to come there. And that's something that we have to try to bring the spark as a coaches also. It's very important for the kids or younger, but it's still important with the professional guys.
Yeah, sometimes more so.
I think, yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, and it's actually quite. It's really huge to see, for example, in NHL games or when the players are smiling, they are letting the true emotions out. That it's not always. You don't have to look like you are going to war, because you are not going to war. You are going to play the hockey game, and you are try to excel and give the best out of you as an individual or as a team, as a unit. Yeah. So, like you said, it's the most important muscle that you have the closest in the sun. So between the ears, and that's the thing where we can affect.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, I think about just you mentioned the guy smiling, and one of the things that I do when I'm working with individual players is getting them to understand what I call is their peak performance state, right? Like some guys need to smile on the ice, and that's when they play their best, right? Like they need to be in this kind of loose, upbeat, energetic environment, and then that shows as a smile, right? And there are some players though that need to play with what I call like a burr up your ass. You got to play with a little bit of angerness, or a little bit of anger, and when that happens, that's when they play their best. So I think now and maybe. Yeah, I think this is an interesting thing. Like back when I played and back when you played, I know you said you didn't play very long, but on a professional level, we were from a coaching perspective, we were expected to bring whatever it is we needed to bring from an energy level or from a focus level or all that. Like that was on the athlete. And then the coach was responsible for the X's and O's, right? Like what our forecheck was going to be, prepare us for the other team, all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm not coaching at the level you're coaching at, but when I'm listening to guys talk, it seems like that philosophy has shifted. Yes, X's and O's are still X's and O's, and yes, we have to be ready, but there is a much bigger focus on the individual athletes and helping them prepare and be ready and helping them align. Is that accurate?
It is, and I also think that the culture in as a whole, it's changing so much. Like I said, I remember still in the first times when I was in professional hockey, sometimes in 2005, 6, 7, 8, around there, and so much before the games, it was still about the war world is a little bit bad, but it was so that you have to bring the energy out by hating the opponent. You can't even mention that there might be some good friend of yours playing against you.
Right.
It wasn't allowed to talk with the other team during the warm up, but that has changed totally, and I think in a good direction. It's still we are playing against each other, and you don't have to like them if you do, but they are not enemy. They are our opponent, but not the enemy, and also with the younger players, there has been a huge shift, like you said, that like I coached it with the 2003 born players as a national team coach. When I started when the guys were 15, so U16 national team, and then in the Finnish system you go 3 years with the same age group until the U18 World Championship, and the difference was unbelievable. These guys, they could be before the game, they could be singing and smiling and throwing jokes, and we were as a coaches that holy smoke that they are not ready because they were not ready to go to the battle. But when the puck dropped, they were ready, and so that then I understand it. The culture has changed a lot, and like I said, in a good direction. It's also challenging for us as a coaches that being on the same page with the guys, especially with the younger guys, it's not easy. But trying to find to be in the same book, so we can we can start from there and work our way up with in the same page.
Right. Oh, that's great. I love that. So yeah, interesting. So I'm hearing and I'm seeing it too. One society is creating a different athlete. I think I think parents are creating different athletes, and so as a coach, you have to coach who's showing up, and I see that even in the business world, right? Like these old school CEOs dealing with millennials or Gen X or whoever they're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Like some of them want to mold them into what they think they should be, and others are like, no, you have to coach who's there. You got to be a boss of who's there, right? Like how to make these people function and work for you. So it sounds like you're in the world of let these kids be who they are and find out who they are and allow them to grow in that capacity. One of the downsides I see, well, I mean, it all depends what kind of hockey you like, I guess. But for me, I do like a little bit of a sandpaper, grit and grind.
Yeah.
Got guys who do like to go in the corner and maybe a little chirp, trash talk here and there. Like I like that element of hockey, and I think it's gone away a bit. And I think that's because the athletes are a little bit different. Do you think that's kind of the case too? That it's gone away a little bit?
Unfortunately, yeah. It's the whole physical side of hockey is not totally away, but it's lacking a lot. And it's also not only the physical, also the mental toughness. Like it's not only the hits or battling, but also the mental toughness. Like you said, it's is it the verbal or is it some kind of other ways it pronounces itself? But it is. I don't know how much is it nowadays how the children are brought up. Also, like I said, the society is changing in every country a lot, and it is like I said, it's a little bit unfortunate. I still think that hockey is a contact sport, and it should be stay in that way, both as a physical and also as a mental side. I think it's a contact sport also in the aspect of who's winning the mind game,
right?
So to speak. And but I think we are battling with the same stuff here in Europe, here in Finland, as what you guys have in North America.
Yeah. Do you And I think, I mean, I don't know, it's interesting. Each time I watch the NHL, I kind of get a different feel. I know I still love NHL playoff hockey, the best hockey in the world, I think, because there's just that element, right? That element that isn't there in the regular season now, I think, is there. You're kind of fighting for every inch on the ice, and there's much more price to be paid in certain areas. And that's the kind of hockey that I like to watch. But I have seen a little bit of shift in regular season. Obviously, there's a different you can watch different teams, right, in the regular season, and you're going to see a different brand of hockey because every organization kind of has its own philosophy. But with you now in a coach's seat, and I would assume in a position where you get to make some roster decisions, do you value? And this is one thing. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. So say whatever it is, but. I am promoting like the younger players that I see with a little bit of an edge and with some sandpaper, like. I tell them, like, you are in a much smaller boat than you've ever have been. Like, there's less players that want to do what you do, but there is coaches that still value that and want that on their team. Like, is that something that you do place a value on?
Yeah, for sure. If it doesn't matter which country you take, but if you check out the team that raised their hands after the last game, they do have skill. They do have a good skating ability. Most of them are 4-line teams. You need to have other than the one line, and they do have these guys who are making their this job that doesn't show on points and I think now the Vegas won the Stanley Cup. It's a pretty good example that the kind of team you have to build. For our our point of view in Kalpa, there's a rich culture in Kalpa's hockey that they are very. We value skating a lot, like really a lot. We have to have 25 guys who can skate, and that's basically the foundation of our games. How we think we all the time we want to have 5 players that are attacking. So that's already bringing out the defensemen that they have to be able to win the first forecheck. They have to be able to give the pass. They have to be able to jump on an offensive play. And we are expecting the defensemen to join the rush, making the offensive play. And also the defensive side of the game, we want to be pretty much in your face all the time. That of course there comes to situations that you have to a little bit take back and protect the middle, but in a big picture that we want to have a team that is pressuring, we want to steal the pucks in the offensive zone or in the neutral zone, or we want to make the other team making the mistakes, putting on their toes, and basically, like you called in tennis, the forced errors. we wanna create those, and but yes, we need all sorts of players, and but it has to be nowadays that even that 4th line guy who has to be able to bring also something else to the board than making the hit. He has to be able to play with the puck. He has to be able to keep the puck, make the offensive plays, and I think nowadays it's more asked from the player. You have to be more mobile as a player. You have to bring more elements to the game, and the more elements you can bring, probably the easier is to take the next step and basically move to better role.
Yeah. Yeah, well, for sure. And I think that's where as a young player, and sometimes the pros have a hard time with it too, is really understanding like that recipe or that structure of building a team.
Yeah.
You know, like in the most fundamental aspect of like not everyone can work the top on the blue line of the power play.
Yeah.
I mean, just something for you. So you could have like 6 mobile defensemen, right, that can move and handle the puck, but only one of them gets that job.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that you have to value those stuff and you have to be able to show the players also the importance what you have in a role. Let's say if we put it in a bottom 6 forward, that we have to be able to show them that he can forecheck, he can steal the pucks in the O zone, he can bring the offensive zone time with the puck, even if it doesn't score a goal right away, but we are with the puck, or they can take out of if you have a couple good demons in the other team that play 25 plus minutes in the game, that you have those guys who can pressure them all the time, making their evening even a little bit longer, and you have to show the value. Is it from the stats, or is it wherever you can find that these players, they can understand? It's the same thing. Let's say the guys who are playing the PK. If you only look what's your PK percent, it doesn't lie, but it can say you can have an unbelievable good PK in one game, and you have only two penalties, and the other team scores 1 power play goal. Your percent is horrible, and it can be lucky bounce that went in. Yeah. So you have to be able to show them that, for example, how many minutes they spend in our zone, how many when we are clearing the puck out, that we were 100% when we are clearing, and so on and so on. So finding also the value for these guys, these players, And I think also it doesn't have to be in a professional level. You can bring it also to the who's making the screen for the goalie when the puck goes in.
Exactly.
He doesn't get the point, but he's very key guy to that the goal is scored.
Very
So
key. Like so
yeah,
key that it wouldn't have happened, right? And like that's the thing, like that I think like at the younger levels, right, that the parents often miss, right? And that sometimes the coaches miss. And then even at the pro level, that sometimes teams miss that on the video side of things, right? Like if you don't acknowledge that, to your point, and if you don't highlight it, and if you don't celebrate it, then it gets missed, right? And then it's like, well, why am I doing it? You know, so often I've been on teams or worked with coaches where it's like, like show the back check, like show
yeah,
the back check and talk about the back check that that was the turnover. So Carlson gets the puck and goes back the other way and gets his point, right? But it wouldn't have happened without the back check. Like I think that's a great way to develop culture. It's a great way to give everybody a purpose on a team too, and to understand, where their value can be. And yeah, like what you highlight will
yeah.
be what they recognize, right?
And
So I think that's awesome talking about that stuff, because it is
I
those
think
little things, especially if
yeah.
you want to win hockey games, that really makes a difference.
That's the thing, and like you mentioned about the when we go to the playoff hockey, the element of playoffs, the element of basically every situation, how important it is, how important every face-off is, how you are reacting from the loose puck situation. Uh, so this is a team sport, and you can win the points without the whole team, but you don't win the championship without the whole team, and I think that's a key.
Going to take a short break of the episode from the episode with Petri to talk to you about the Peak Potential Project, which I have a guided mission launching right now. We just finished week 1. Week 1 is all about mental agility. That is about understanding what your ideal mental state is to play your best hockey. This is before the game or before a practice even starts, to be able to engineer your emotional state using your thoughts to get you ready. And it is also about using your thoughts to dial yourself in during a practice or a game when things might not be going the way you want them to. So hence the term agility, the ability to pivot, the ability to be a quick responder to anything that may happen. We break down what the emotional states are during the week. We talk about house league thoughts and all-star thoughts, and how we can use these to program ourselves to what I call close the gap. So we don't wallow in despair or in embarrassment or in anger or frustration, and we're able to flip the switch quickly and not fall into a slump, not even fall into a run of 1 or 2 or 3 bad shifts, but be able to turn around and have your next shift be the best one yet after potentially a bad shift. Or starting the game in the ideal, the optimal performance state for you as a player. I always talk about personal recipe cards or personal operating manuals. I believe each athlete has their own personal operating manual, and a part of what the peak potential process is helping these players understand themselves better, understand their game better, so they can play their best consistently and create their personal operating manual. Throughout the peak potential process, throughout the Peak Potential Hockey Project, I am always talking to them about building their self-awareness, to understand what makes them tick, what their triggers are, where there are some belief systems that are potentially holding them back, what they need to focus on and to rewire to help them realize their goals and dreams. And part of what happens in the Peak Potential Hockey Project is at the end of each week, we have a coaching call, and we get together as a group in the guided mission, and we share our what we learned, what our takeaways were, how they are applying it, some questions they might have, and we go a little bit deeper on the material. It's widely celebrated as one of the coolest parts of the program, where we all get together and have that time together. And one of the things I ask the athletes to do prior to that coaching call is to answer 3 questions. And they're simple questions, but it definitely helps them retain what they've learned. It helps them, clarify what they're learning and how they're going to do it. And the 3 questions are easy. It's what was your biggest takeaway from the week? How this is going to help you, the new information, how it's going to help you to realize your goals and dreams, and also what actions are you going to take to make sure that this happens. And I'm just going to read one of the responses, and I think it's a pretty powerful comment, just to give you an indication of what happens here in a short period of time. This was after 5 days of some new content, some new material in mental agility. One of the athletes writes, and a female athlete, by the way, which I think is pretty cool. I love when the females are involved. She says, some of my biggest takeaways from the Mental Agility Week were definitely the primal and powerful states. When I look back on experiences I've had throughout hockey, I find that I am often in the primal state. And I realize that this is something I need to change and access powerful states more often. I have Team BC tryouts coming up next week, and I know it would really benefit me if I can step into that powerful state and stay there, respond to situations and not react. And if I have a bad shift, move on and just focus on making my next shift the best one. I also enjoyed the gratitude lesson. I feel so grateful for so many people in my life, especially my mom and dad, who have sacrificed so much for me. And it was a good reminder to realize all of the opportunities and effort they put in to me and just be grateful to them. And not just saying it, but actually showing them how grateful I really am. So awesome. Like, that's so cool. There is a lesson. There's a gratitude day, and there's a lesson on gratitude where I have an assignment for them and get them to really connect to what it is that this hockey journey means to them and the people that are around them, and to connect to those things. Not only is it great to connect to the people that have provided you support and to the sport itself, but it's also a great skill set to develop in order to deal with nerves and anxiety and some of these things that comes up. It's really, really hard to be in a grateful state and also be anxious, or to also be frightened, or to be angry, or to be nervous. So channeling the gratitude as a skill is a great resource for some of these athletes, and it also connects them right to the people who love them and support them. And sometimes younger athletes, especially, can take some of these things for granted. So awesome that she was able to connect to that, and awesome that she's able to identify the difference now between a powerful and a primal state, and how to get there. And just that knowledge, having that knowledge of yourself, that this is the way that you work and that you're wired, allows these athletes to make different decisions in the moment. They can actually feel empowered in situations where they never felt empowered before. They felt like they were a part of the environment instead of in control of themselves in the environment. So really love that takeaway. That's from 1 week of the Peak Potential Project. If any of that resonates with you, there is another one coming up August 7th, I believe, and they carry on throughout the year. So if you're listening to this on tape delay, there's always an opportunity to get involved in the Peak Potential Hockey Project. So many breakthroughs and so many awesome stories, and really is the competitive advantage that your hockey player is looking for, not only on the ice, but also in life. So without further talk about that, we will now get you back to the conversation with Petri. There's such an emphasis on skill development now, and skill development oftentimes means, puck and stick, going through cones, and, head down kind of stuff. And these kids, you add that, or you have that, and then you add on the fact that they, on their devices and on the TVs, it's such a highlight generation, right? Like, it's the best goals are the goals where somebody goes end to end and beats somebody through the legs and underneath the bar, and meanwhile there's 9 other players on the ice, right? But they continually watch this, and that's what they think is fantastic. I think it's taking back from the team element of the game, like being able to distribute pucks, get pucks back, keep it a team game, like the game that I like. Do you find that at the youth levels that you are having to encourage more team unity?
Well, I haven't been that much in like a really young ages. I always try to find when we talk about the skill, that we talk about the winning skill. Is it that highlight reel stuff that it's a skill that you are looking for, or is it basically the skills that wins the hockey games? And it's easier when the players are in junior B, junior A age, because then you are starting to, you can give the example if you wanna make the professional level, that this is the thing that you need to learn. These are the skill. Find a way to, for example, as a skill in the offensives, how you keep the puck, how you protect it, how you can win that 5 seconds to your team that the new guys are coming in, and you stay in the puck, protecting, take the hit, how you make the next play. So, but when we talk about the child, then it's difficult, and I think that's very demanding for the coaches, that we can teach the skill that there's a highlight skill, and then there's a skill that can bring you a very good hockey player, and that can help the team a lot. Yeah. And but I have been trying to always talk about that winning, like a winning skill, and the bigger, the older you get, it's more about the decision making. Yeah. That, for example, it was great learning experience for me in the national team when I go with the same age group 3 years, and of course in Finland they are our best players, and all of them are very skilled players. All of them are very offensive players, and the learning over there to work with me, that you have to keep that ego in a game. You have to have it, but egoistic is a bad. And when you, it's a cool learning experience with the very skilled players. And of course, when we come to the UA team, when it comes to World Championship and everything, NHL draft, and of course it raises a bar a little bit. Everybody wants to be drafted. Everybody wants to show their skills so that they are noticed. And but it's talking about the winning skill, talking about those small details in your skill set that can make you a difference maker in a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough message to get through at the youth level. Like, there's been many times where I've been on a bench and, like whatever, coaching U15 or U13, right? Like this type of age group. So they are getting into puck movement and distribution, but there still is a lot of, individual type efforts, right? Yeah. And it's just the age, and that's the way it goes. And generally the better players are more able to go through people, so they choose to do that. But there was lots of times where a kid would come off with, a highlight reel goal. And I would say, hey, congratulations. It was a sweet goal. But I'm like, it was actually, you made the wrong play probably twice, like just to help them with it, right? Like to try and be like really honest with that, because the one thing that I do see as these kids progress is the longer they're able to play as individuals, the harder it is for them to actually learn the game, and at some point you can't go through the whole team. At some point, the funnel's too tight, everyone's too good. And now you're trying to figure out how to distribute, to scan the area, to take in the information, right? And anyways, and sometimes that can be a struggle for them. That's where a lot of kids drop off. So definitely I try and be honest in that. And I love the player that plays with his head up, right? And can find that play. And I guess back to your point, like those guys that are worried about ego and how they show, like I think it shows. For me, it shows way more when a kid can't make the right decision, right? Where he's always attacking, he's always turning everything into a one-on-one. Those guys scare me, even if they have great skill, right? Because everyone else on the ice has to watch them while they're doing that. And it takes everyone else out of the play. So you got to be really good, in my opinion, to like turn the game into a one-on-one, like really good.
Yeah. And the thing is also with the players to understand that, of course, we look for skilled players. We look for the players who can put the puck in, who can score a goal. But many times we look for the players that helps the team to win. That every coach, it doesn't matter the level, the higher you go, the more you look for the players who can make the team better at some way. Yeah. And in those ways, you have million ways to do it other than only scoring a goal or only to have some unbelievable stick handling skill. And that's a thing that also with younger players or when they get older, that they understand this, that's something that every coach, every team, every scout, everybody is looking for. That it's not only the highlight stuff, but how we can make our team better, our locker room better, how we can build a culture, what kind of culture we want to build, and what kind of piece can you be in that circumstances. What can you bring to make the next guy next to you better?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's a learning curve. It's I doubt that during this interview we can find the solutions in everything.
One of the players that I've been working with for a while, his name's Nathan Mackey. He's like the captain of the Salmon Arm Silverbacks, and I worked with him before he got there, and it's just been fun to follow his his own personal development, right? Yeah. I think he almost scored 30 this year at the BCHL level. He's committed to by Michigan State, and he's going to be a university player for sure, right? And he's a high level offensive guy at the BCHL level. But when we talk, like he scores the vast majority of his goals in front of the net, right in front of the net, and not that like he's like I would consider him. He has skill, 100%. He has skill. He has a good shot, but like scoring from distance or scoring, after you beat somebody one-on-one and drive the net, like. They all count the same as what I'm saying, right? Like they all count the same. And for him to score those goals in front of the net, just outside the blue paint, whether it's a rebound or whether it's a tip, like as a hockey person watching that, I'm like, he can do that at the university level and he can do that at the NHL level. Like those are places where those goals are going to still exist. Like the way he's scoring, if he gets really great at that, can translate. Whereas some of these other guys, like they confuse offense, right, with having to be really high level one-on-one players. And everyone's trying to do that. And that's the one thing that I'm just trying to reprogram some guys on is really embrace who you are and understand how you can be effective offensively. You were talking about puck protection and stuff, right? Like that's way different than trying to put it through somebody's legs, right? Exactly. That's holding it till someone comes to you. That's making the defenseman uncomfortable. That's allowing your teammates to get into the play, right? That's a very, very high level skill set to be able to do that. But sometimes players don't connect the dots on that. It's not flashy enough, right? So yes, we definitely won't solve it right now. But I think the more we can talk and maybe the more parents can hear about that side of the game, right? Like it can translate into maybe some practice habits that go a little different down the road and maybe help these players, move on, which is what I try and help these guys with.
It was a first time, for example, when we were as a national team, it was U17 year. We had that hockey challenge tournament in Canada. Our year we have it in Swift Current and Medicine Hat was the other place. And for example, our forwards, we knew it that the ice surface is way smaller. Basically, you don't have corners at all over there. And like our wingers, we'll talk about that. Over there, you have to be close to the boards, basically 25 times in a game. You play in our blue line that how you win the puck, how you win the zone, how you protect it, how you take it, how can you take the puck, protect it, and get your feet moving or pass it to our player. And they said that nobody has teach this skill to them in back home. And again, they are our best players. And so that was so eye-opening to players. That what kind of skill, for example, over there you need. The ice surface, it's so different. The game is so different that you have to learn, you have to focus how it bounces, how you read it, what you have to read before. And also from this that you have to learn from the experience as a player that, hey, this is something that I need to work on. This is something, and of course, in this comes the when you have coaches who have played. I can't teach to play. I have never played as a winger in a defensive zone, never, ever. But then you need to have a coaches, or you can talk with the players who are playing there. That how you teach them, what you have to learn, etc., etc. How to go forward from there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like some of those smaller detail points of the game, right? Like a lot of the NHL is along the boards, right? It's all small area board play. How do you get the puck off the boards? How do you know where people are? How do you protect yourself and the puck at the same time? It happens so fast, right? There's a lot happening there. And for sure, you know, you can kind of talk to your blue in the face, but you know, with the guys like that, I think one of the hardest jobs in hockey, period, is being a winger in your own end on the half wall. I mean, like
it is.
And if you can win that 50% battle, like get that puck out more than half the time, like you can probably play hockey for a long time anywhere. That's winger, you know.
Exactly, it's the same. It's the same as a centerman. I have a couple of times talked with the ex centers, and they said that if you learn how to be in the face of circle and stand in front of the net, then you will be always on the ice when the game is decided.
Yeah,
always. You only have to be good in face-offs and be in front of the net.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And it's funny, guys are always looking, like when I'm talking to guys about what they want to do or what the roles they want to fill and the minutes they want to earn, like those are the things, right? Like, okay, if you want to be on the ice in the first minute or the last minute, up, down one or up one or down one, guess what you have to do? Like you have to be the winger that gets the puck out on the wall more times than you don't. You got to be the centerman that's going to win the draw, know to play in his own end. You know, like there's these detail things that guys sometimes don't connect, right? Like who is those guys that get those jobs? And it's the guys that you trust at the end of the day, right? That you trust, that you've seen it happen.
I think it's finding the ways. Like you may be the junior A player and you are first line guy who's scoring the goals and playing PP all the time and everything, and then if you want to take the next step to the pro, probably you might be in the third line. Little bit different expectations. And so as a player that you find the ways of getting that ice time. Probably you have to change a little bit your like player personality. You have to different details that you have to respect. I think it's the same for the coaches. That if you want to be all the time head coach in somewhere, it doesn't work like that. And there might be situations that if you want to go forward, that you go to take the assistant coach's job, you might be before that you have always worked with the defensemen. And okay, maybe they are looking for the guy who works with the offense. So are you saying that, okay, I don't work with the offensive guys, or are you just saying that, okay, I work with the offensive guys, I maybe have to adjust a little bit, I have to find a ways of learning that's what is expected.
Yeah.
But I find it's the same with the coaching that is it with the players. Yeah. And
for sure.
For the import coaches, for example, is the language. That for example, if the Finnish coaches, if we want to go to Sweden, probably they are expecting that we have to speak Swedish. In Finland, it's our second language, but I can speak from my behalf. I don't speak very good Swedish, but then it's either that you learn that language or you have to say that, okay, then I can't come. So how much you want it?
Yeah, what a great lesson. Yeah, the fact that you bring that up. So I held a tournament here back in June called the UMH 68. So we brought in a bunch of the best players in British Columbia and we put them on teams and you know, it was a development weekend, but they also played games and they had some celebrity coaches there. And I was talking to one of the coaches and he said, yeah, because I mean, you do your best to obviously fulfill roles and positions. Yeah. But no one seems to want to shoot right-handed anymore. So you're trying to find like, you know, like who can play right wing and this, that, and the other. And so the coach at one point was like, oh, right, you know, Johnny, you're going to go play left wing and Jimmy's in the middle and whatever. And Johnny turns around and he's like, I'm not going out. I don't play wing. And so we had this discussion afterwards just as coaches, right? And I was like, he's like, can you imagine being 13 years old and like saying that you only play center? Right? Like if you can only play center, like you are very, very limiting yourself moving forward, you know, and to your point, you know, same thing with a coach, right? If you can only do one thing, or if you're only willing to do one thing, like that doesn't keep your options very open. I remember one story. I was telling you a quick story with Brad Larson. So Brad Larson, he just got fired as the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was on the podcast and he talked about a time when he was a player. And and I forget who it was. Somebody asked him, one of his head coaches, I think it was when he was in Atlanta, said, "Hey Larson, you ever play center?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, lots, right?" And he goes, "I never played center in my life, But he's like, I wasn't going to say no. He's like, I was going to learn how to take faceoffs. That would maybe give me more minutes or whatever. So he goes, I lied through my teeth, and I think that's kind of the attitude that I think is, most of us should embrace, right? Like be yes people, like I can, yes I can, yes I will. And as players, to anyone listening out there, players, like, yes, as a defenseman, you want to play the left and the right side, right? You have to figure out how to play both sides. If you're a winger, play the off wing, try and get some reps at center, right? Like all it does is increases your knowledge of the game, your depth of knowledge within the game. And it also it encourages your utilization as a teammate, right? The coach can use you in different spots. That's nothing but an advantage to you. So especially at younger ages, when parents go, I think that's the funniest thing for me is like when, Mr. Smith will come down and be like, you can't put my kid on wing. He doesn't play. He's not a winger. Well, why isn't he not a winger? You should want him to play different positions, So anyway, that's my little rant. I'm totally about trying new things and playing new things. And I think it helps you as a hockey player, helps you with guys like you and you're making decisions too, right?
For sure. And it's the same with the goalies. What I understand, the goalie position nowadays, one of the big things that how you read the game, how you anticipate, and it's not only in the end of the day, it's only the stopping the puck, but what happens before that you have to learn the game, you have to be interested of the game, and for the goalies also that be interested how the defensive side is playing, what we are trying, also the how the power plays are playing, because it helps you. It helps you to bring the knowledge and just being aware, being developing yourself.
Anticipate, right? It helps you with the anticipation, the read of the play. Yeah, for sure. I can't believe we've been talking for almost 50 minutes. Okay, I want to talk. I talked about the Finnish development model. So, like, again, you guys, about 6 million people, like, do awesome on the world stage when it comes to any type of best on best. You said you coached the U20 team. How does it work at the youth level? So say, like, you have young kids, 2018s, they're going to be in hockey, I'm sure, at some point. What does it look like at the youth level, the foundational level? From what I've heard, if you're in a town that has a pro team, the pro team kind of handles the development on the way up. Like, can you walk us through what that looks like as a young Finnish player?
So our the programs are different. That you have always, for example, here in Kalpa, in Kuopio. Kuopio is the city. So all the teams until as soon as they start playing, they have a hockey schools that Kalpa is running, and then they are at some point. When they are 6, 7, they are starting the teams, and so basically it's the same organizations all the way down from the highest level. And in the Finnish system at the moment, it's we are trying to make you can have like 2 or 3 teams in the same age group, depending on how many players you have, so that we get we don't have amount of numbers, so we can't basically miss any players. That we have to try to bring as much players as possible as a younger age. And then when the players are, so now it's coming 09s or 08s. Anyway, somewhere there they have a big tournament that are brought like area teams. There are about 130 players playing the week tournament. And from there, it's like the first national team is built from. And we have a professional national team coach in U16, and then he has assistant coaches, but they are not professionals. They are working in some teams. And and then we are playing. We have camps. We have tournaments. Let's put it in U16. You have it in when the first national team is built. You have then camp in May, in August, in November, December, February, and April. And so there's quite a lot. And we played tournaments against Sweden or German or Switzerland, Slovakia, Russia before. At the moment, unfortunately not. And during the year, for example, in my year in U16, we had I think over 60 players that were on our camps. We had almost 50 players that played at least one national team game. And then when you go higher, of course, it little stretches up that you don't have that amount of players maybe anymore coming to the camps. And so I think, and the professional coach who is always working in the national team is doing a lot of cooperation with the teams. He's visiting the teams, visiting the organizations, talking with the coaches. And when we have, let's say that if I'm U16 coach, I talk with the U16 coaches around Finland. And when we have the U18 coach is doing the same thing. Our U20 coach is doing the same thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of course, our country is quite small if compared to, for example, in Canada. We can do this. There comes a lot of driving kilometers, but still we can do it. And so when you go that 3-year run, you know the age group really well, you know the players really well, and it's very cool 3 years also for the coaches, because you start with the guys when they are 15 years old and you finish them when they are 18.
Yeah, that's a great age group.
To see that they grow. And so I think that's the thing that keeps our hockey competitive, that we can always after each tournament we give the feedback for the player, we go to his team, talk with the player, with the coach, give the video feedback on what he should focus on, how we should do it, make some planning or just talking. But cooperation with the association, with the national team, with the teams are really good in Finland, like really, really good. And,
so just so if I understand it, so then these players, actually, I want to go backwards a little bit too, but let's just talk with that U16. So at the U16 level, so you're talking about 15-year-olds that they get invited to this national camp essentially, right? And then they've been established as national team players, or whether they made the team or whether they're invited to the camp. And then all these players go back to their home associations. They will play on their own teams.
Yeah, they are all the time basically playing with their own team. And, and that's a thing always, that as a national team coach, you don't develop the players. You are thinking way higher yourself if you are thinking that you create these players. No, they are created in their teams.
Right.
So our way is to work with the coaches who are helping the players to develop.
Right.
And that's and in there you learn to know the coaches very well. You learn to find the ways of helping for example, we have a good situation. One coach might have said about the player that, hey, I can't get connection with him, that you talk with him. Or I have been talking with the coach who said that, hey, at the moment this guy is not in a daily work, he's not doing good. He's not doing the way he should do. So please don't take him to the next national team tournament. And then I have been explaining to players that, hey, now you have to put your best effort in a daily work. And when you do that, then we can again invite you back to the next tournament.
Right.
But now you have to focus on that daily work in your own team. And so there's a very good ways to affect on players when we are doing this cooperation together.
Yeah,
and so let's say that Finland wins like we have been able to win a couple World Championships in U20 in the last 10 years. And always, if you ask any of those coaches who have been coaching there, basically all the positive words are going to team coaches, because those are the guys who are making the players.
That must be is it a huge thing that Finnish hockey celebrates, like winning the World Championship at the U20 level? That's huge.
Yeah, for sure. It is huge. I have been luxurious to be part of one of those, and it is huge. And And for example, always if we are, is it U18 or U20 or girls or women's, or if you are in top 4, I think it's always it's a good.
That's
and then it comes,
fantastic.
then it's a bounce here, bounce there,
Yeah.
that actually finally decide the game. But if you are top 4, it's always a good tournament.
Yeah, that's crazy. The So at these different breaks, because you mentioned like a lot of different months there where the league would break or whatever, and you'd bring these kids together, right? And you'd have a camp or a tournament. What happens to the players that are left? Does like the whole league kind of break, like all the different leagues, or do they continue on playing and doing their games and practicing?
They are basically we have a national team break in November, December, and February. And then August camp and April camp are basically outside of the season, and it's always 1 week break. So you have that 1 week time for the tournament. Okay, the U17, the hockey challenge is a little bit longer. So the players who are over there, they are missing couple games from their home team. But
okay, so the home team then, other than that tournament, the home team does break while there's a national team break?
Yeah.
Okay, so those kids don't play hockey. All kind of the top players go to the national team, they do their thing, and then they come back and everything starts up again.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like
Just going to take one more short break from the conversation with Petri to talk to you about the Facebook parent group of Up My Hockey, which is growing leaps and bounds. It's crazy. There's so many people that are coming in to that amazing community, and rightfully so. It's an awesome space. It's a safe space. It's a like-minded group of parents that are doing their best to support their athletes on their hockey journey from the young ages to all the way up to the junior ranks, and are closer to their pro aspirations or their college aspirations. And it's a place where you can share. It's a place where you can ask questions. It's a place where you can learn about mindset and what the Up My Hockey philosophy can be. And we're actually going to be hosting in there a mindset summit here in August. It's going to be the launch of our Up My Hockey app, which we're super excited about. It's a place where now players can connect with me directly, which is awesome. They've never really had an opportunity to do that before, unless you were a private client of mine and had my number. There's really no place to follow along in kind of a personalized place. And so the Up My Hockey is going to live on the phones of hockey players now, and there's going to be different levels of membership, which is super cool, and there's also a free component there as well. So really excited about that. So the Mindset Summit, we're going to be talking about all things mindset, all things high performance to get you ready for the upcoming season. So if you are a hockey parent and you're interested in the Up My Hockey group on Facebook, by all means, make a request there. It is a private group. Answer the questions, and I'm sure that we will accept you into our family. And maybe the Mindset Summit is something that can, get you familiarized and get you comfortable with what the content is, and maybe the app is going to be a good choice for your player. So yes, the Up My Hockey group on Facebook is an awesome spot for you parents out there and players. If you happen to be listening, watch for the Up My Hockey app coming soon to a phone near you. Now back to the episode with Petri Karjalainen. Okay, so now I've heard different things too. So at the younger levels, I've heard that there's not much gameplay in Finland. I don't know if that's true or not. Like that is mostly a practice emphasis. And I've also heard potentially that there's not even much tiering of kids at the younger levels. Like they don't take the top kids and move them on, that they keep them together. Again, I have no idea if this is accurate or not. Like, do you know how that model works?
You are on the right track. I think the numbers in games, they are always going a little bit higher, but not even close what you have in Canada. Not even close. For example, if we have a U20 season in our highest level, it's 42 or 44 regular season games. So yeah, for sure we are emphasizing the practice a lot. That's a little bit problem nowadays with the younger kids, because there should be more that we bring the best together, and then I don't know. Is it also the little bit the nowadays society that you shouldn't be competing that much, or
Right.
I don't know. But I have the same picture that there comes a big numbers. It doesn't develop anyone if you are way better than the other guy, or you are not in that level yet. So
What is the philosophy though? Like, I know I have my own philosophy, but is the Finnish philosophy I mean, is there a break, I guess, like in age, like, I don't know, whether it's 10 or 11 or 12, where now we do separate and we keep them together, or is there kind of
it
a
comes,
general philosophy that you're aware of?
yeah, it comes little bit like step by step. The biggest is starting when they are 14, 15, because then starts the like a league for the whole country.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and biggest teams are able to go with the maybe two quite similar teams until that, or even three. But then when the first time they have this SM league, so to speak, that the whole country is involved, then probably they are coming to, so to speak, number one team and
Right.
number two team, and but still we have a very good stories in Finland that we have guys who have played in Junior B. They have played in a second team or Junior A, and after that they have drafted to NHL and made a career over there. So
for sure.
Again comes that there's no timing in developing. So and we have to
Different
remind
path.
that, yeah.
So okay, so then up until that point in minor hockey, if you're an association that has enough players, they'll try and have like a balanced teams, and with are we talking about the competitive kind of travel teams, and then there's also a house, we call it house here in Canada, where the kids just kind of, it's more just for fun, maybe one practice a week, they play some games, or is everybody a part of the same system?
Basically everybody part of the same system, but then when it comes when they are 14, 15, 16, then comes maybe a little bit more diversity, that you have guys who are want to go to top, and then there are maybe teams that are just so to speak having fun, or
Gotcha.
There comes a more different over then, yes,
because that happens way quicker here. Like,
yeah.
U11 here. So we're 9 and 10-year-olds. Like, there's people like, that's where it maybe would probably sound crazy to you. Like, there's people that will leave their home association because the competitive program there isn't good enough, and then they'll like travel to go find a better competitive program. I don't know.
That's the thing, that we have to keep the numbers. That if we are doing too dramatic, too drastic these changes, we find out that at some point that we don't have players. Like we have, I don't know what's exactly 5 million, 5.5 million people in the whole country, and ice hockey is way too expensive sport at the moment, and to keep these guys in hockey, guys or girls in hockey, is a very, very valuable thing, and it has to be that way if we want to stay competitive. If we that we don't have that luxury that we can only work with the top guys. We have to bring the older guys with us.
When it comes to the fees there, how does that work? Is it just mom and dad that pay it all the time, or is there some type of support from national, like from the government, or is it explain how that happens?
Most of it is mom and dad. Most of it is mom and dad. And then when the players are getting older, let's say in that 15, 16 and older from there, these top players are getting help from the professional teams. That if we are looking that we have this very skilled 16-year-old who is maybe in top 20 players in the country, then probably he gets some kind of assistance or sticks or skates, and probably the same thing what it's all over the world, that the ice is expensive, and of course traveling is expensive. That's the thing. What's the problem also here in Finland, that our sport is expensive, and probably some of the players that could be good players are left out of because of that.
Just because of that.
Yeah, I hope not many, but for sure there are some.
Yeah. When it comes to the coaches, it's another thing that I've heard, that when it's working well, or there's generally, I guess, the strategy or whatever, that it's not. Well, I'll contrast with what happens here. Generally, here in a minor hockey association, you will have a dad, like even given me, like let's say me, I have hockey experience. I want to be a coach. I want to coach my own kid. I will coach, but I'll coach my kid throughout the levels, and then I'm gone.
Yeah.
Whereas in Finland, I've heard that a lot of times, because of the association with the top level teams, that like there's more of a professional type of approach to the head coaching positions, and that there will be one guy or woman that coaches the U13 team or the U15 team and coaches it for quite a while. Is that true or not?
We have let's say that basically all our U20 head coaches are full-time. Most of the assistant coaches are also more or less full-time, not with big salaries, but are full-time. In Junior B, our head coaches in top teams are full-time, more or less.
And what about at the youth level, like the U13 level? What would happen there?
There are not professional coaches, but there are many of the organizations that you might have the professional guy who is responsible, for example, the U14 or U13 teams. And there might be this, and there is dads as a coach, but there's a little bit one guy who's supervising everything and might be running everything. We do have a fathers as a coach for sure. I don't know, is it possible even to work the other way? Right. I don't think so. But there comes when you are in the organization that there is always these, let's say, 2 or 3 coaches or whatever the world is that they are with the youth hockey, and they might be supervising many of the 2 or even 3 teams, but there's a coaches on the ice that are supervised by the professional guy,
right?
And also we have basically all organizations, you have a goalie coach or 2 who is working with basically the whole junior movement.
Yeah, because I did think it sounds like it's not necessarily true, but kind of is. You'll have one guy overseeing and making sure that they're doing the right developmental things for the coaches that are coming up through the system, right? So like they know how to coach U13, they know how to coach U14, and they kind of know the development path. And I think that there's value to that, because I know after working at the U11 level for 2 or 3 years, like I definitely knew more. I was better set to handle U11s at the end than I was at the beginning, So like the more experience you have there, right, the better you're going to be at it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, to contrast Canada, like we don't do, mind you, I've been out of the national program for a while, so I'm speaking not firsthand experience, but it's generally like a selection camp or a process, and then you just go play a tournament. Like there's no breaks in the season. You're not coming together. There's not a development stream per se like that. I know U.S. hockey has done that, obviously. Like they've established, their couple teams that actually play together all year. So I don't know, like if we're behind, I don't really know as far as like the Canadian developmental model. Obviously we still keep producing players, but I think it's maybe something to do with the development program, but it's also just the sheer numbers, right? Like you're gonna put players in the NHL just because we have a lot of players playing. But I think there's probably some things that we could copy from these other.
Yeah, and I think also the one thing, it's not only the producing the players. Of course, that's the big thing, and also producing good hockey. It's a big thing, but those camps, those tournaments are really good experience for the guys. That's a thing. Like if you only have that, you only bring the team together in, let's say in Canada, probably it's a hockey challenge. Then they have even the Linka tournament in U18, and then they have a U18 World Championship. And for example, for our guys, like I said, in U16 we had over 50 players who played a national team game.
Right.
So we get it's a natural, these guys, that they don't all make it. They don't come to professional players, but they get that experience that they can put the Finnish jersey on listen the national anthem, play against the best ones with the best ones, and so that's also the experience level. It's a lifetime. So and that's also the cool thing I think in our program. It's a pretty much same in Sweden, and so it's okay. We love them and we hate them at the same time. But we played against the Swedes maybe 20 times during the year, during the season. So you get to learn them very, very well, both good and bad.
Yeah. The so you're when you won the U20 World Championship there, World Junior, where was it? And were you the head coach or were you? No.
I was an assistant coach. We were in Sweden playing the final against the Swedish, and we won it with Rasmus Ristolainen overtime goal. And so it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. We have been. It was the age group 90, 94, 95, and I don't remember exactly our stats, but the Swedes were winning more than we were winning. So winning them in their soil, silencing the Malmö arena, it was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Is
that a highlight for you?
Huh?
Is that like one of the top highlights for you to this point?
Yeah, for sure. But like it's the same thing. I think as a coach, as it is for the players, that you remember a lot of moments. You remember also the moments that I have been part of the losing the finals in pro hockey, or different kind of moments that you remember. And even the bad ones you remember after 5 years, 10 years, they are becoming good ones, so to speak. That, for example, as a result-wise, that's one of the highlights. But I was 3 times in World Junior Championship as an assistant coach, and all of them have something special. Year before that, we went to relegation round, and year after that, we were lost in quarterfinals against the Swedes. So from every tournament, you get something. And my time, we had one time in Russia, one time in Sweden, and one time in Canada. So experience those. It's also for the players and for us as a coaches. That's a huge.
Yeah, that is. I remember, like I had an opportunity to play in one World Junior Championship, and we ended up winning it. It was in the States, and but by far probably the highlight really of my playing career. And I've talked to other guys too. Unless they've won a Stanley Cup or something, like it is like playing for your country at that level. I know in Canada, like the tournament's huge, right? It's covered nationally by TSN. Like everybody's watching it. It's over the holidays. Like you're a celebrity for 2 weeks, like really. And it's a huge deal. And it's totally in the memory bank. As far as from the Finnish side of things, is it, but it seems like hockey is hockey your number one winter sport?
Yeah, for sure. Winter sport it is. It's okay. Most in soccer you have more players than in hockey in Finland, but the ice hockey is has the most spectators, has the, so to speak, most money in Finland in athletics, and we just have to learn also not to use it in a wrong way. It's not something that we can always wait and see that, hey, we are getting every attention and just roll it on. That we have to all the time also find a ways to develop ourselves in that.
Yeah. But so these players, like you come back after winning a gold medal or whatever, like the country's watching while you guys are doing that, essentially, right?
Sure. And now it's starting to be really, like a couple years after that, they won the U20 in Finland, in Helsinki, when Petri Karjalainen and Sebastian Aho and these guys were playing. And that was like huge. Like it was a home win, and basically after that, our U20 and also now there's U18 teams are very followed, especially the World Championship. That it's pretty cool also for the U18 players that it's their first time that actually is in the media. You are followed, you have talked, you are on a TV. So it's going to be actually interesting next April or May when the World Championship is U18. We have it here in Finland, so it's going to be cool.
Well, good luck on that. That's great. What would be the biggest game like at that U20, like on an international stage? I know you mentioned Sweden, like you play them a lot, like they're a big rival there. Is it that game? Is it the game against Canada that's kind of circled on the calendar? Is it against the Russians, the States? Like what would be the biggest kind of country to play that you either have the most respect for or you're most excited about?
It little bit varies. Like always when we play Sweden, it's something special. But of course, it comes already that we know them so well. They know us so well. We play so much against each other. For me, it was when we had a World Championship in Toronto and Montreal. It was quite experienced. We faced both of them in the same group. We played Canada and USA in a Bell Center, and especially playing Canada in Montreal, that was cool to be behind the bench. And Canada beat us, so but that's it little changes always that what kind of players does the other team have, and I always have liked myself if we are talking about the World Championship when we play against the home team. That if you have a World Championship in Russia, then it would be cool to play against Russia, and there's always a little bit something extra. And like I mentioned it earlier, that we have it was U17, not the World Championship, anything, but the Hockey Challenge tournament that's the first crack for the players to play in Canada against their team. Canada is there with the 3 teams, and we are always playing in the very small cities, and that's always I have only been there once, and that was a really cool experience. That it's you are basically in a background of original Canadian hockey, so it was cool.
That is awesome. Well, thanks so much, Petri, for being with us and chatting Finnish hockey, and had a chance to celebrate you and your success, and I mean, hopefully success this season. And I know success is different things, right? I don't know what we didn't really have a chance to talk about your team and what the expectations are, but I wish you luck with whatever they are, and have an opportunity to chat about Finnish hockey in general. Like I said at the beginning, man, like you guys really should be celebrated and modeled, like because to do what you do with the few numbers of players that you have, you're obviously doing something right there, and I think it's a part of the coaches that are part of that too. So congratulations on your own involvement in that, and I look forward to following Kalpa this year, and I'm sure that we'll be in touch in the future.
For sure, and it's also I think Finland is good on also taking notes from the other countries. That we are proud of what we are doing, but what happens in States, what happens in the games in Canada. Of course, we are looking a lot at what Swedes are doing. We can take maybe a little bit something best out of there and bring it to our game. And of course, it always have to be involved in our personality, our hockey country, our set of mind. But there's always something you can learn from the enemies, so to speak. Also, it is.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, that's a great lesson too for hockey players, to always be looking, what is somebody else doing, and what can I take from their game, or what can I take from their practice habits? And I think that's kind of been the message of this entire discussion, with the parallels between coaching and players, and also between countries and countries, right? Like be coachable, be curious, ask questions, and be willing to try different things. So awesome, man. I really appreciate you spending time here today. We'll cut it off, but I will be following Kalpa this year, and maybe we'll have you back on again at the halfway point to see where you're at.
That will be great. But it was a pleasure to talk about hockey and change the ideas a little bit.
Thank you, Petri.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking around to the end. What a fantastic interview, Petri. Thank you if you are listening. I really appreciate you and all that you do. And I wish you nothing but the ultimate success this year. Wouldn't that be fantastic if you took a Kalpa to a league championship? But neither here nor there. We all know in the hockey world that it's not always about the wins, and often it's about the process. And I know that you are going to do the right things there by your players, and enjoy that coaching staff and that support that you have around yourself. I think that Petri was able to provide a really great insight into Finnish hockey, what it means to be a Finnish player, the direction that their program is going, and it really sounds to me like they're a little more relaxed about their hockey, even though it is their national pastime, or at least their national winter sport, at the younger levels, that they try and keep everyone as involved as possible. I see this in stark contrast to what we have going on here in North America, where we're trying to separate, where we're trying to, elevate and look for the ultimate competition for our players. From such a young age, that we're separating them and we're segmenting them and we're relegating players. Whereas Petri talked about right from the get-go there that they are trying to keep as many people a part of the system for as long as possible. And even at that U16 level, he said where the first time they bring in the national team program, they had, I believe he said, 40 to 50 kids play a game at the national team level. With the national team. Like, how exciting is that for all those players to wear the Finnish jersey and to keep them a part of the system? And of course, the funnel tightens as you get older. And but they also have this national program that comes together 4, 5, 6 times a year. I don't think that we are doing this in Canada. I don't think that the United States is doing this until the older level, where they'll actually bring the top 20 together for a whole season. So I think Canada seems to be a little bit behind in the national side of things. And, I guess in some respects it's understandable just with the size of the country and getting players from across the country. But I mean, we could possibly be creative here and try and do even 2 national teams at the younger level, right? Like, why do we have to get to 1? Why don't we do an East and a West representation? And why don't we get those players together at different points during the season and maybe at the end of the season and have them play each other or something along these lines? But I do think that there has to be something to be learned from the Finnish model of development. More practices, it sounds like, less games, more inclusivity at a younger age, and more widespread development at the national program level once they do reach that age bracket. I think there has to be some compelling evidence there for a country with 5.5 million people and a 66,000 player registration base to perform as well as they do on the international stage and keep producing top talent to the NHL as well. So thank you for that. That was a conversation that I was wanting to have for a long time. Would love to have somebody else. If there's anyone else listening in Finland that would like to be a guest or would like to share some insight on the Finnish development model, I would love to entertain that conversation. By all means, reach out. I'm always looking for new guests. And that'd be an excellent conversation. Or potentially somebody from the Swedish development model. Petri talked about the rivalry there with Finland and Sweden, which I know is real and definitely exists. And Sweden is doing an amazing job of their development as well. I'd love to see what that looks like as far as a contrast and compare to the Finnish model or to that here in North America. So yes, always looking for new guests. Would love to have some representation from outside of North America and what players and teams are doing as far as preparing their players for the NHL or whatever level that they want to get to. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, play hard and keep your head up.